All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lake Bluff Village Board meeting. It is Monday, May 11th, and it is 2020. And could we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Inkeman.
Here.
Trustee Charlo.
Here.
Trustee Dewart.
Here.
Trustee Markey. Here. Trustee Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Toll.
Here.
We all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
And
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have consideration of the minutes of the April 27th, 2020 Village Board meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Dewar and seconded by,
Second.
oh, okay, seconded by Mr. Toll. Any corrections, additions? All righty. I'm assuming on this one, we're all in favor?
Aye.
All righty, at this point in time that we allow 15 minutes for anyone here or tuning in tonight who would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have anybody? Drew, have you had anyone that wanted to do so?
Do not believe so. Can you confirm, Glenn?
That is correct. We do not have anyone asking at this time.
Okay, thank you. All righty, we shall go immediately into the village finance report, which is for May 1 through 15th and the April 2020 payroll expenditures. We have a summary and background here. Expenditures of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $258,639.10 for May 16th through 31st, and expenditures of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $289,047.25 for April 2020, which will make total expenditures of $547,686.35. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Markey. Do I have a second? And second, Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions and things, questions for administration on this one? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Inkeman.
Aye.
Trustee Charlo.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey. Aye. Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
All right. The next item is the treasurer's annual report of the police pension fund. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All right, do I have, that's Ms. Ankerman, and do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Toll. All right. We've got attached as a copy of the fiscal year ending April 30th of the annual treasurer's report. I'm going to ask our Director of Finance, Colin, would you give a brief update on this?
Sure. Thank you, President O'Hara. So as you know, police sworn personnel are covered by a pension fund plan. And although this is a single employer pension plan, the defined benefits and employee and employer contribution levels are governed by the Illinois compiled statutes and may be amended only by Illinois legislature. As such, statuses of the annual pension fund are required to be reported to the village board by the treasurer of the pension fund by the second Tuesday in May, and to be included in the packet in this report. So the police pension fund is governed by a five-member board of trustees. 2 members of the board are appointed by the village's president. 1 member is elected by the pension beneficiaries, and 2 members are elected by active police employees. Now, the primary financial objectives of the pension fund are the presentation of principal from the impact of inflation growth and the provisions of liquidity needed to meet the pension plan benefit requirements. So the fund's weathering the recent market volatility related to COVID-19's shutdown of the economy and the credit market collapse that accompanied plummeting oil prices. Total net assets as of December 2019 increased by 8.4% from the beginning of fiscal year May 1, 2020. However, the unbelievable market sell-off that took the S&P 500 on a 34% decline in March of 2020 has driven down the pension fund's assets. So as of April 30th, 2020, we've declined to approximately $10,342,000. And as of today, even with some market volatility and fluctuations in April, we're hovering around the exact same number, give or take $100. So that's an approximate 1.5% annual decrease. The pension fund code restricts investment authority to move no more than 60% in agencies with duration ranges of plus or minus 25% of index and cash less than 10%. It also limits mutual funds, equities as a percentage based on assets. And overall, the time-weighted investment return ending April 30th, 2020 was a negative 1.15. The upcoming fiscal year annual property tax extension notice indicates a distribution of $744,734 in anticipated property tax receipts. And there are 14 current active employees contributing to the fund with an estimated $148,000 in payroll contributions for fiscal year 21. The funded ratio for the most recent 2019 actuary evaluation report indicated a 57.9% funding rate. That rate was a little lower than the prior year rate and not based on the current economic or financial reporting. The rate changes were due to retirement rates, increased annuitants, and also a change to the recent experience and mortality tables by the Department of Insurance. That's the brief summary.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do any of the trustees have questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. At this
Kathy,
point,
you
it's
should-
the village administrator's report, and he is going to give an update on at least one thing that we haven't canceled. Thrilled to hear that. Which is the 2020 Lake Bluff Farmers Market. Drew?
I will do so and happy to do it. I just want to make, I thought
Are
I
you
heard
there?
Village, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Village Attorney Freeman, you were going to make a comment, I believe, about the voting.
Yeah, we should be doing roll call votes. And if we're going to do a voice vote on something non-controversial, make sure we ask if there are any nay votes.
Technical.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think Kathy alone is having issues at this point.
Want me to do a roll call?
No, I think all that needs to happen for the last vote on 6B with the police pension fund report is just Village President O'Hara can just ask if there are any nay votes on that.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost her.
There she is.
Oh, she is.
Okay.
We can hear you, Kathy. Kathy, can you hear us?
Are we there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Was that me?
Yes.
I caused the problem. Okay.
It's okay.
All right.
Kathy, could you reposition your camera or your laptop because we're getting your, nope, the other way. We're getting you right in the sun in the window. You have a beautiful
All
window.
right.
That's better, but you're still getting a lot of flare. Okay.
Well, I'm afraid I'm in my office and it has a lot of windows. So
Okay.
So I'm afraid we'll just have to deal with that tonight, and I apologize for that.
All right.
Okay, all right. So Drew, did you want to give a brief update or?
I'm
Glenn?
going to ask the village intern, John Scapoletti, to do that. But I just wanted to clear up one thing that you dropped out, Kathy, when village attorney Peter Freeman asked that if we should do roll call votes, but if we're not on non-controversial items is to be sure that we ask when we do a roll call, when we do a voice vote.
Are there any nays? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So, John, do you want to take it over?
Yes.
Hi,
Can
John.
you all hear me? Good evening,
Yes.
everyone.
Good
Hi,
evening.
John.
Okay, good evening, President O'Hara and the Village Board of Trustees. So I'm in front of you tonight to talk about the 2020 Lake Bluff Farmers Market Report. This year marks the 27th season. And as we know, due to COVID-19, it has given us quite a situation to deal with right now with how we plan to do this. So for this year's market, the main recommendation that the committee has come forward with is for the market to still operate at the same duration and operation standpoint. So that would be from June 5th to October 9th with the same time frame of 7 a.m. to noon. With the stay-at-home order, this has definitely made this an interesting situation. So tonight, we're going to be talking about some space for social distancing, reduced crowds, hygiene, and increased hand hygiene, controlled entry, and communications to customers. So for the social distancing, if you would like to scroll down in your attachment, you'll see a layout that states the Village Green and how it would look for this year's market if approved. The main thing to notice is that there is a contemplation for the possibility of closing East Scranton, going east and westbound, with the exception of leaving a access point off of Sheridan Road to the Lake Forest Bank and Trust ATM. And the other main point to know is the social distancing. So there's going to be markers that will be placed at 6-foot intervals near the vendors to help customers distance correctly, both in between vendors and while they're in line for a vendor and for those that are on the sidewalk passing by. For reduced crowd purposes, there will be no entertainment or special events at this time. That may change moving forward, but that's an opportunity to be discussed later on. There will be no pets allowed on the Village Green except if it is a service animal, and there will be no consumption of food on site or around the Village Green. It is strongly encouraged that households have a plan as they approach the market, whether they're looking at our map and being able to determine which vendor they're planning to purchase product from, so that we can make this as efficient as possible, while also decreasing the amount of individuals that we have wandering around in the Village Green. For hand hygiene, there will be hand sanitizers provided for customers and required for vendors to have. And the main thing to know is customers will not be allowed to touch the produce. It will be all handled by the vendor, but the vendors also will be providing a contactless payment, so eliminating that cash. From controlled entry, there will be 2 entry points. If you're looking at the layout for the green, you'll see the 2 entry points are in the southeast corner of the Village Green, so you would be accessing it from the east and working your way north to then exit off onto East Scranton Avenue. The other access point is in the northwest corner of the Village Green over by the train station. It would be coming south on the sidewalk and then going east on the sidewalk towards East Scranton. So from both entrances, we will be exiting onto East Scranton Avenue, and both routes are one way. For communications to customers, the market's signage and advertising is going to educate customers on these different policies, especially moving forward with making sure that customers are wearing masks, staying socially distant, and not staying at the market for an extended period of time. Like we had talked earlier, due to COVID-19 occurring right now, it has we've had to make certain decisions in regards to our vendor totals. Right now, we're expecting 20 to 25 vendors given the layout that we have right now. And compared to last year, we had over 30 vendors last year. But for 2020, we're looking at 20 to 25 vendors with 1 new vendor, which would be the La Province Bakery, which was a bakery that produces baguettes and croissants. So it would be the first bread vendor that we've had in a while. The main thing to know is that the rest of those vendors that we've approved are all returning. And of those returning, 4 of those vendors are new vendors compared to last year in 2019. which were new. So we're able to retain those. And I believe we had 6 new vendors last year, so 4 of the 6. But with that, I'm going to open up for any questions that the trustees or President O'Hara may have.
I have a question. Will someone be stationed at the northeast corner there to ensure that people don't enter, kind of go up the down staircase?
Sure. So Glenn can come in if I'm missing anything, but based off our conversations that we have, I believe we have volunteers from the Farmers Market Committee that will be at that northeast location that you're talking about. To make sure that we, one, there's hand sanitizer there, but 2, also making sure that there aren't customers coming in that way. I think the other point to note is that we have the opportunity to shut off the the southeast entrance and the northwest entrance if we see that there's a overpopulation of customers at the market at a certain time.
Okay. Good thought.
John, I had,
Go ahead, Joy.
sure, thank you. I just had a quick question. When people are entering at the entry points, are you going to provide them with maps of where the vendors are and how they should move through the market, since it's a little different than last year and we're hoping to get people kind of in and out? Will they be provided with a map?
For sure, great question. So I haven't had this discussion yet with Glenn and the committee, but I believe it's a possibility that we'd be able to have a map that's large enough to have at both entrances for reading purposes. If we feel it's necessary that, for our customer standpoint and to keep it as efficient as possible, to print out maps, we can do that for sure. We can also create a list of stating each vendor and what product they have, which is very similar to what you have attached to the memorandum tonight. The other point to note is the vendor map will most likely be on the village website, I would assume, where we have our farmers market page. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, just having that available would be online, so you could use your phone and whatnot.
For sure, yeah.
John, I have a question for clarification. On the sidewalk, east-west sidewalk on the Village Green, on the south side of Scranton, I just noticed this looking at it now, but there's the one-way sign. So it looks like we're requiring people to only go eastbound on that sidewalk. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So if you were to enter the market from the northwest corner of the Village Green, like let's say you're coming from the bank or that on the north side of East Scranton, you'd be coming south on that sidewalk and then going directly east. It's a one-way sidewalk going east, and then from the southeast entrance, it's a one-way going north.
Right, okay. Yeah, that wasn't marked on the southeast entrance, so it's just
okay. Okay, we'll add that.
John, I have a question for you.
Oh, of course. Go ahead.
Thanks. You said that we would limit the flow of people accessing that area. Do you have a sense what would be the maximum number of persons that we would basically allow for basically distancing, and how would that compare to what we have as a normal number of people visiting the vendors? Do you have a sense for that?
That's a great question. I believe in my conversations with Glenn and the Farmers Market Committee, I believe, and Glenn chime in if I'm wrong, I believe we had, I want to say 150 to 180 for people on this layout, given if East Scranton is closed the way we have it laid out. And I believe compared to past markets, I mean, I don't want to assume, but I want to say, a couple hundred. I know that in the last 2 years that I've been here, the market really gets busy from about 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's really the sweet spot where we see the most amount of customers and children and all that. But I don't know if Glenn may be able to give a more exact response.
Sure. So I would, John, I think doing a good job of explaining, I would say that based on, so let's say the farmer's market was a retail store, right? If you look at a couple different ways of calculating it, if you look at the square footage of the market, or if you look at basically how many linear feet of passenger area there is, you could be in the neighborhood of 130 to 140. I don't think that's really prudent. I mean, I think in our conversations with the farmers market, if you were to pick a number, it would be closer to half of that, probably in that 70-ish range. If we have either of those numbers achieved, I mean, we're having a really good farmers market. We don't have great pedestrian counts in years past. That's obviously something that's tricky to do even in normal times. And I would say that's tricky to do in this time as well. I think our decisions on the day of the market to close entry points would more be based on the behaviors we're seeing rather than a point in place count. If we start seeing that there's not distance, social distance being kept, that could happen in a very small number if they're all concentrated at one vendor. So I think that would be the basis of our decisions.
So what you're saying is we're keeping the same visitor volume, but we're spacing the vendors so that vendors will have basically the same volume themselves, but with a different layout.
Yes, that's the biggest change here is that our vendors have been intentionally spaced out much more than they were in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We've closed streets to make, pardon my video cutting in and out, we've closed streets to make even more room for people to be able to space out. Mm-hmm. That one-way sidewalk is because there's no way reasonably for people to be able to space out there if it was two-way. And that's our approach.
Thank you. Great.
I have one additional question. It's, I guess, regardless of what the state decides to do, are we going to require some sort of face covering for anybody that enters the farmers market?
I believe that is the plan. And Glenn chimed in.
I thought that was definitely part of the plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're prohibiting entry if somebody doesn't have a face covering.
Correct.
That is the initial plan, and if the governor's order, if the phasing, we start experiencing success, and we could back off of that, then we'll reassess that. But certainly initially, it'll be mask required.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question here. We're contemplating two-way traffic on Scranton down the middle, and so I'm assuming that we would have browsers going in either direction. It also occurs to me that we have a lot of people from the west side of town who come up from the bike path there by the train station. So someone who might enter on the sidewalk on the north side of the green would also likely exit back heading home down Scranton going west. So we have, I guess what I would say, three populations here of folks, those who are browsing on the north side of Scranton, the south side of Scranton, as well as the population of folks who are heading home. We feel like we've got enough space for all three of those groups to safely maneuver down the middle of Scranton. Did I make myself clear?
I think the answer is we hope so. We think so,
Mhm.
and we're going to learn from this and have to. If we have to make adjustments, we have to make adjustments.
Yep, that's fine.
And one of the good things is that Pony Swanton, the chair of the Farmers Market Committee, and his spouse and our manager Gridley Swanton have done some really good reconnaissances of other markets where they've already started instituting COVID-19 measures in terms of requiring social distance, requiring masks and so forth, and that have changed how they run their markets. And so they've been out observing those things and bringing those best practices to us and how we think about ours. And all of it is, I mean, we're taking other best practices from the National Farmers Markets Association and incorporating that into our physical location and how we think our market has operated over the years, and trying to weave all that together at the same time, realizing that this is a fluid situation and we're going to have to make adjustments in the field as we see to make appropriate. So
Excellent.
I'm just happy to see that we're trying to do something here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I've been out and about quite a bit in like Bluff walking and running on the east side and well, kind of all over. And I think from a personal responsibility standpoint, people are doing a really good job. Like if they see someone on the sidewalk walking their dog, they'll move out over by the street in the, by the curb. So I have a feeling people will be thankful that the market's open, and they're going to use good judgment when they're moving through the market.
Especially if they know that we'll have to put more restrictions in.
Right.
If they don't follow the rules. So, yeah. Just be responsible, I think, is the key phrase.
It's an important element of normalcy for Lake Bluff. And I'm very excited to see any element of that to return.
Yep.
Well, and I hate to say this, but if the market committee has done it right, it'll feel a lot different. And I hate to say that, but the idea of instituting all these, right? It's going to be a different experience. And that's part of it is, it's probably, historically, it's been 50-50 socializing, the consumer. And so we're leaning, heavy 90-10 on the consumer side. So,
right.
But.
Well, if someone wants to socially distance and socialize, there's still plenty of spaces available on the green and elsewhere downtown to be able to do that and embrace that.
Yep.
Well done, Glenn and John.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would also, sorry, President O'Hara.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, Glenn.
It would be remiss of us, of course, not to thank Tony and Gridley and the other members of our Farmers Market Committee too. We have a lot of volunteers, each one listed in the memo, that put a lot of work into this, that have done, as Drew said, the reconnaissance and the hard thinking even months ago, talking about some of these things, really visionary almost. I mean, there are a couple things we heard in some of our meetings I hadn't thought of yet. So these are people that really care about the market, put a lot of their time in, talented artists that invest their creative efforts in this as well, and the street banners and the posters and things. We're very blessed with a rich volunteer community here in Lake Bluff, and that shows in the quality of the market we put on.
Excellent.
Well said.
Great. I will admit, and I will admit I was hesitant at first if we could possibly, not be able to do a market and keep safe at the same time. But I think the efforts by the committee, by you folks, have really made this possible. And I truly believe that our community will embrace it and will follow in a cheerful manner. And we'd like to see it open, and we want to see it continue. So I think that this could be a really nice and pleasant experience for everybody. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, President.
Drew, do you have any other?
No, I just thanks to Glenn and John and the committee for all their work, and kudos to the committee. The only other thing I would add for this evening's meeting is that this is our last meeting of the month for the Village Board of Trustees of Lake Bluff. The next meeting will be not until June 8th. I think everybody will remember the last meeting in May is canceled due to the Memorial Day holiday, but I think Village President O'Hara may mention the Memorial Day activities coming up a little bit too. I don't want to steal her thunder, but that's all I have. But I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Anybody? Okay, village attorney's report.
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Village president's reports. I'm going to be asking again the trustees to extend the declaration of the village president's authority and declaration of civil emergency. We have done that twice before and would like to ask that it gets extended until our next meeting in June. Are there any questions about that? First of all, I should get, we don't have to vote on this, I guess. Are there any questions?
You do.
Do it.
Yes, you
Doesn't say so in my notes. I thought we did. All right. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Charlot. Questions, comments?
Do we need to state in the format suggested, I hereby move to extend the village president's March 18th, 2020 declaration of emergency until the end of the next regular special or emergency meeting of the village board.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Sherlock,
Aye.
trustee Dewar,
Aye.
trustee Markey. Aye. Trustee Meyer,
Okay.
trustee Toll,
Aye.
trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. One other thing I would like to mention, as we will not be having our second meeting in May, which will be due, of course, to Memorial Day. And in the past, of course, Lake Bluff has always honored that day with a service, so to speak. We will be doing that again on Monday, May 25th. And it will be shown, it will be an abbreviated version with help from Stephanie Rolick of the Chamber of Commerce, who's helped organize this, with members of the American Legion folks from Lake Forest will be helping us. Several of our high school kids who helped us put on the Veterans Day event will be helping with this also. We will be having a short speech by a member of our community who is a 20 years, a highly decorated Navy SEAL. So it will be a short ceremony. It will be pre-recorded, so to speak, and it will be shown on the village's website, the museum's website, and Lake Bluff Strong. So that will be on Memorial Day so that we will continue the tradition of memorizing and honoring that day. And that is all I have for my report. And we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. We have the acceptance of the correspondence that will all note all correspondence delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on April 24th and May 1st. All right, do I have a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Markey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, was that Ms. Anchorman?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, any comments or questions from the trustees? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Dewar,
Aye.
trustee Markey. Aye. Trustee Meyer,
Aye.
trustee Toll,
Aye.
trustee Ankman,
Aye.
trustee Sherlock.
Aye.
All right, the next item on the agenda is an ordinance amending Title VI of the Lake Bluff Municipal Code regarding parking regulations in the village. Do I have a motion? This will be, by the way, second reading approval. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, I believe that was Mr. Toll and first and seconded by Mr. Dewar. All right, the Lake Bluff Municipal Code sets forth certain motor vehicle and parking regulations for the Union Pacific Metro Commuter Station, the Lake Bluff Commuter Parking Lot, and other vehicle parking areas throughout the village. Recent review by the police department revealed a number of discrepancies between the parking signs posted throughout the village and the parking regulations within the code. The recommended amendments to the various parking schedules correct the regulations and making them fully enforceable as was originally intended and do not require any changes to the existing posted signage. And the first approval was at our April 22nd meeting. Do I have any comments, questions from any of the trustees?
President O'Hara, I do have an email from a resident to read on this item.
Please, okay.
I'll read it now. Hello, Village of Lake Bluff. I noticed you were planning to make revisions to parking restrictions at your upcoming meeting. I was wondering if you would consider allowing residents to park in front of their own homes on Center Avenue. we have a narrow driveway and have to move cars all the time. We would really like to be able to park a car in front of our own home overnight, and I'm sure others would like that too. Please let me know if there's an opportunity to consider this request. Best, Franz Patera, 508 East Center Avenue. I did have a conversation with Ms. Patera earlier this evening and explained to her the origins of these changes to the municipal code and as a cleanup item, and that they weren't, the purpose of these was not to modify or suggest changes to the parking environment, merely just make sure what was on the books matched what was signed, and explain that. And she seemed comfortable with that response and wanted to know how to maybe pursue her concern. And I told her I would start by having a conversation with the chief of police and we would take it from there. I explained to her in the past there had been kind of a subcommittee that had worked on various types of issues like this in the past, and that this had come up most recently in this particular geographic location of the village as part of the village's and the park district study of the beach parking issues in this specific area. This homeowner is east of Moffett. And so she's in that area where, you know, that there's that seasonal no parking, overnight parking, and it kicks in at 9 p.m. So she understood that others may have dissimilar ideas than hers, but wanted to kind of start the conversation. So I told her I would pick that up and we can bring it back at a later date, but I just told her that was not part of this conversation, but I want to make sure that she was heard this evening.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, this is a roll call vote. Roll call, please.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Dewar.
Aye.
All right, item number 12 is a resolution adopting a revised employee handbook for the village. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Charlot. The employee handbook sets forth the condition of employment applicable to all employees of the village, except that certain sections are superseded by applicable collective bargaining agreements. Annually, village administration reviews, recommends the boards adopt changes to the manual in keeping with best practices in human resources and the recommendations of the village labor council. Following this year's review, in addition to routine updates recommended by the village labor council, the village administrator recommends that the village introduce a voluntary sick time donation program for employees who are experiencing a personal or family medical emergency and who have exhausted all other forms of paid leave. The proposed language has been designed to meet IRS guidelines regarding the taxability of leave donations. By the way, this proposal was under consideration prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had a first and a second for this. So do we have questions from the trustees? Hearing none.
And Trustee Hoyer, just so you know, we have some participants or attendees on tonight's meeting, but they have not raised a hand yet. So I was just going to remind Glenn, if you would, to remind folks how to chime in.
Okay. Does anyone wish to chime in on this particular agenda item?
Typically, if you wish to chime in, at the bottom of your screen on Zoom, there's a Q&A button. You can press that and ask to be recognized. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9, again, *9. Or if you're watching at home, you can do any of these things, or you can email us vlb@lakebluff.org, and we'll read those at the correct time.
Okay, no one's taking you up on your offer there, Glenn?
That is correct, Madam President.
Okay, all right, this is a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Dewar.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Okay. We now have item number 13. which is a resolution providing for an alternate method for reviews of applications to the backyard chicken and beekeeping pilot programs during the COVID-19 emergency. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Marquis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Charlot. On January 8th, 2018, the village board approved 2 pilot programs to authorize the keeping of chickens and beehives on residential properties within the village as a pilot program ending March 1st, 2021. At present, there are 2 chicken permittees and 0 bee permittees within the village. There have been no reported issues with either chicken keeping permit. The village's pilot programs for backyard chicken and beekeeping both require that a village advisory body hold a public meeting regarding an application before a permit is issued. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the suspension of all village advisory board and commission meetings, this requirement cannot be satisfied. The attached resolution will provide an alternate pathway to approve these applications during the COVID-19 state of emergency. The village administrator would be required to provide a copy of the application and comment opportunity to neighboring owners and residents, as well as members of the Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee. Are there anybody in the audience that has a comment on this? Okay, hearing none, at least I'm assuming so. Any trustees wish to speak on this issue? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Charlo.
Aye.
Trustee Dewar.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
We have agenda item number 14, which is a resolution approving a license agreement to use a portion of village property at 751 North Moffett Road. It should be North Moffett Road. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Dewar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Toll. The village has previously approved other license agreements to authorize the installation of private improvements, such as fencing and landscaping in village-owned areas adjacent to private property. Scott and Lorraine Pomerich recently purchased the property at 751 North Moffett Road and desire to build a decorative fence in their front yard. The village's zoning code would ordinarily allow this fence to be built up to 4 feet tall at or behind the lot line. Based on consultation with the village engineer, the attached draft license agreement would allow this decorative fence to be constructed approximately 14 feet forward of their property line in the public right-of-way. In exchange, the owners would be responsible for landscape maintenance between the fence line and their property line and would bear the cost of preparing the license agreement. Are there any comments from the audience?
I had a quick question for Drew. We've made exceptions like this before for other residents in town.
That is correct. The village has done numerous license agreements for with a number of property owners to allow for the installation of improvements like this, fencing, landscape beds, but it has been the practice when people have approached the village that these issues have been, matters have been brought to the village board, and when they've executed agreements like this, the board has generally approved them. I would show this, I'm sharing my screen here. This was a shot that was not included in the materials, and you have to turn your heads. I apologize. It was sent by the requesting party's iPhone, but it's a really low scale fence. This is what they want to install along the frontage there. You've seen these in other places in town. It's a couple feet high fence, small picket style fence with vegetation in front of it.
You might also want to remark that in the case that they would have to remove it if for some reason the village needed to have it removed.
Yeah, there's conditions within the agreement that give the village the ability to have the fence removed, and the homeowner becomes responsible for maintaining the property. Sometimes there's significant sized trees on the other side, and that becomes impossible for us to access with our equipment once there's other improvements in the right of way. So they take on that responsibility of maintaining any landscaping on that property side of the fence, or whatever the improvement is this, and the village does have the ability to escape, if you will, from these agreements.
And Drew, you also have language in this agreement that the land, there would not be contested ownership of the land, correct?
I'm sorry, you asked that again?
Yes, you also have language in this license agreement that after a certain number of years, 20 years, there would not be a problem of ownership of the land, correct?
Yeah, and Village Attorney Friedman, you could probably speak to that better, but the idea that this license agreement establishes the legal vehicle, how the property is utilized and to what degree, as opposed to preclude a taking of sorts by use.
Well explained, that's correct.
Yes, is the answer. Trustee Sherlow, we are protected from that.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other
One
questions?
quick question, yeah. Has there been any comment or objection from neighbors?
These matters, there's no like public hearing. We don't have a process for these. Where this is as public a hearing as we have about those types of issues. To my knowledge, the neighbors have not been involved in this.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on this topic? Okay, I'm sorry, was there somebody? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Inkeman.
Aye.
Trustee Sherlow.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Okay, trustees report. Mr. Dewar, do you have anything you might want to say regarding the 125 committee?
Well, I would be pleased to comment on the history tour for those who might be watching. You may have heard that the museum, Lake Bluff History Museum, with the good fortune of a significant grant from the Abbott Laboratories Fund, is building and about to release the first 2 history tours of Lake Bluff. There will be, when we're done, a total of 10 tours. These will be app-driven using your smartphone, whether you have an Apple phone or iPad, or you have an Android telephone or a tablet. You'll be able to download the app. These should be released within the next week. We're really excited about this. This was an important element, has been an important element of the 125th committee. The committee wanted to leave a lasting program for the village beyond the scope of all of the activities related to the anniversary itself. And as I said, the first 2 tours will be released soon. There will be some signage coming up within the next week. You can go to the 125th's website, lakebluff125.org, and get more information on how to download the apps and be able to have fun. We're very excited about the timing of this. These apps and tours are intended for walking and biking. For those who aren't able to do that, you can do this in a car, but really the intention was to get folks out and getting them walking and biking in the community. Little did we know that when we began to contemplate this, how important getting out and doing those activities would be in light of the current set of circumstances we're all living with. So we're very excited that this will give people in the community a chance to get out and do something really productive. So a big thanks to the History Lake Bluff 125 Committee and to the Lake Bluff History Museum for their support. I'll say that the apps are filled with really interesting information about different places in Lake Bluff. Their voiceover is available, and that's been volunteered by people local to the community. Lots of photos assembled by the museum. It's just a great, great effort, and I know that you'll enjoy participating.
I think as I mentioned earlier to a couple of trustees that one of the tours will be the Dogs on Parade. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, eventually, I would say by midsummer, one of the tours won't actually be a tour. The existing, the history tours actually will be GPS driven and take you from place to place on a particular route. The Dogs on the Bluff will be a map, an app-driven map that'll show all of the locations on where the different dogs will be displayed. And I believe we have someplace in greater than 70 dogs at this point. Is that correct, Trustee Markey?
It is. I think we're at around 75.
We're about 75, and who knows, we may have some more, but that's going to be a lot of fun. The other tour that I'll mention that is likely to be one of the next tours released is a tour or a listing, a map of homes that are in excess of 100 years old here in Lake Bluff. Those that are existing and maybe homes that are no longer there, but you'll be able to see a photo of what some of the historic homes used to be. It's really, really cool. I couldn't be more proud of the folks who have pulled this together. And as I said, we couldn't have done this without the support of the Abbott Fund. And the Abbott folks remember that Elmer Vliet, who was the chairman of Abbott Laboratories, is sort of our historian par excellence for the village of Lake Bluff, and they continue to honor his name at Abbott and their support for this effort.
Thank you, Mark, very much. All right, I am going to.
Trustee, I'm sorry,
yeah.
President O'Hara, before you do that, because of the way we end up closing our meetings,
Yes.
it'll be necessary for you to ask the board to take out of order item 17, which is the executive session minutes, so that can be considered by the board before we go into closed session.
All right, I can see that. Yes. All right, so let's move that up. So we have consideration of the minutes of the April 27, 2020 executive session meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Ankerman, and do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Markey. Any additions, corrections to those minutes? All right, hearing none, roll call on that one.
Trustee Sharla.
Aye.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
Trustee Ankman.
Aye.
I would now entertain a motion to go into executive session to conduct potential pending litigation and land purchase.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Meyer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Charlot. Does this have to be a roll call on this one, or can we do it all in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call on this.
Trustee Dewart.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll,
Aye.
Trustee Anchorman,
Aye.
Trustee Sherlock.
Aye.
All
And
right.
President O'Hara, you know the routine from last meeting, you recall?
The dance I have to do on this one, okay,
Yes.
we have a different login, don't we? Hello?
We do. Glenn, do you want to give the direction again?
Yeah, want to give us the directions again?
Yes, President O'Hara. So the members of the Board of Trustees